Hey guys, and welcome back. So you've seen from the topic of the video that this week we'll be discussing abduction. But before we get into that, first we just want to say that we're so glad with your overwhelming response for the foundation course for Judicial Services Exam. We are so happy that so many of you have found the foundation course helpful and it's helping you achieve your dreams. That's very fulfilling for us. All the reviews are pouring in and we're just over the moon with all the lovely comments and the feedback. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, we just launched an online course for Judicial Services Exam, and I'll link the video on your screen. If you haven't watched it, you can watch it there. So thank you so much for your amazing response. Now, getting on to the video of the day. In the last law video, we discussed the law on kidnapping in detail. If you haven't seen that, I will link it on screen as usual for your convenience. Watch that one first and then this one. If you have understood the law on kidnapping, abduction is going to be a cakewalk for you. It shouldn't be complicated at all. And now that we've already made the video on kidnapping, you've already understood the law on kidnapping, we will be moving with that assumption. And we will cover abduction fairly quickly. So let's get started. Abduction is provided in section 362, that is 362 of the Indian Penal Code, and it says that whoever by force, compels, or by any deceitful means induces any person to go from one place is said to abduct that person. As you can see, this section does not provide any punishment. It's merely a definition section. It provides the definition of abduction. It does not provide any punishment. That is because abduction per se is not punishable. Abduction is only punishable when it is done for a particular end or motive or with a certain intention. For example, section 364 deals with kidnapping or abducting in order to murder, or 365 deals with kidnapping or abducting with the intent secretly and wrongfully to confine a person. Section 366 says abducting or inducing woman to compel her to marriage. 367 says kidnapping or abducting in order to subject person to grievous hurt, slavery, etc. And finally, 369 says kidnapping or abducting a child under 10 years with the intent to steal from its person. So if it's for murder, if it's for confining a person, or for forcing a woman to marry, or for making a person go into slavery, or for grievous hurt, for all these bad purposes, abduction is punishable. But abduction per se is not punishable. So the definition that we just saw in section 362 is not punishable. It only defines what abduction means. And when abduction is done for a certain purpose, like murder or to confine a person or to compel for marriage, then it is punishable. If you go through a bare reading, that is a BAREACT reading of these sections which are listed on your screen, you will be able to understand them, and they're very simple. But we need to understand today the definition of abduction and understand what it entails. So let's look at section 362 again and break it down in parts. So the number one part is whoever by force compels. Number two is or by deceitful means induces. And number three is any person to go from any place is said to abduct that person. It's fairly simple. So the object has to be to make a person go from any place. That's the final object. To make that person go from point A to somewhere else. So let's say make that person go from point A to point B. The main object is to move the person away from the place. How it is achieved? It can either be compelling through force, in which case it would mean use of actual force, or it can be through deceitful means inducing the person to go from that place. So when it is said, when either of these things are done to make a person go from a place, it's abduction. When force is mentioned in this section, it means use of physical force, actual use of force compelling the person to go. And the second thing mentioned is deceitfully induces. It means when the perpetrator misleads a person by making a false representation and thereby persuading the person to leave any place. So basically means झूठ बोलकर, धोखा देकर, to make a person go from one place, that is deceitfully inducing. So say someone comes running at you. You're standing there in a mall or in a public place or in a market, and someone comes running at you and says, "Come on, let's go fast. Your sister is waiting behind the tree, or your brother is waiting behind the tree." And this is a false representation. It is deceitful and it makes you go from one place to another. So deceitfully induced you from going away from that place. This would fall under abduction. This is jhoot, this is dhoka, this is false representation. So either by deceitful means induces or by force compels. If the same person came to you in a market and showed you a gun and said, "Keep walking and let's go behind that tree," then that would be by force compelling. So now you understand deceitful means, and you understand that when force is used in both of these cases to make a person go from one place, it is abduction. But let's understand this better with the help of an example, that is a case law, which is Bahadur Ali versus King Emperor. In this case, a kidnapped girl who managed to escape from the kidnappers met the accused, who misrepresented to her that he was a police constable. He told her that he would take her to the police station, but instead he took her to his house, kept her there and demanded and took a ransom of rupees 600 from the girl's mother before he handed her back. So it was held that this amounted to abduction. Now, since the kidnapped girl was already outside the keeping of lawful guardian, we've already discussed this in the kidnapping video. She was not in the keeping of the lawful guardian at this point. She was fleeing from her kidnappers. She was not in the keeping of the guardian, which means that she could not have been kidnapped again, because to be kidnapped, you have to be in the keeping of the lawful guardian. Right now, she is not. But this man comes to her and says that I'm a police constable. So he misrepresents, he deceitfully induces and says, "Come on, come with me, I'll take you to the police station." He deceitfully induces her to go from that place, which is why it falls under abduction. So you can see also the major differences between kidnapping and abduction now. In kidnapping, intention was immaterial and it was strict liability. In abduction, intention is pertinent. We have seen the sections where abduction becomes punishable. It has to be with a certain intention for a certain purpose. You can also see that for kidnapping, the girl had to be less than 18 and a boy had to be less than 16. Abduction can be of any person. If it is of a minor, it can be done when the minor is already outside the keeping of the lawful guardian. If the minor is not in the keeping, they can be abducted. And if it is of a major person, then also abduction can be done. Also, in kidnapping, consent is immaterial, but in abduction, consent if given, then there cannot be abduction. So now you understand what abduction means, how it can be done through force or through deceitful inducement. You know that it is not punishable per se, and it is only punishable when it is done with a certain intention or for a certain purpose. For example, sections 364, 365, 366, 367 and 369. You also understand the difference between kidnapping and abduction. When you do these two videos, you should be good to go. Your concept is clear. Just do practice papers and try and solve some problems on these. You're all set. So, we hope this helps. Make sure you subscribe so you get notified of new videos. See you soon.